There we go. Terumos. Okay. Okay, we have Gimel Dalet. When does this apply if he did not speak? But if he gave permission to a member of his family or to his bondsman or bondswoman to separate truma, his truma is truma. If he annulled, if he annulled before he separated the truma, his truma is not truma. But if he annulled it after he had separated the truma, his truma is truma. Laborers have no authority to separate truma except the treaders, since they render the winepress unclean immediately. If one says the truma of the sheep is within it and its maseres are within it, the truma maser is within it. Reb Shimon says he has it designated, but the Kakaman say not unless he says in the north or in the south of it. Reb Elazar Chisma says if one says the truma of the heap from it is for it, he has designated it. Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov says if one says the tenth of this maser, this truma maser for it, he has designated it. If one separates Truma before Bikurim, Maisa Rishon before Truma, or Maisa Shena before Maisa Rishon, though he has transgressed the prohibition, what he did is done, since it is stated, you shall not delay to offer the abundance of your fruits and of your liquors.
Okay. So now Zion is a follow-on directly from this discussion of what comes first. Okay.
Mhm.
And we know, the order that we're taking these things in because like we assume that these are kind of first principles, that this is the way we always do it. But the Mishnah is now going back to first principles and saying like, how do we know what order things should be taken in? Okay. How do we know that Bikurim comes for Truma? Zekarai Truma veracious, Zekarai Truma veracious. So the psukim that talk about both Bikurim and Truma have used similar
Right.
words, right? When it talks about Bikurim, it says V'es Trumas Yedchem, and the drush, and this is referring the pasuk in Devarim is referring to Bikurim, so it's called a Truma over there. It's also V'lakacha Kohen Hatena Miyadecha, Kurim, and this is because of the context that comes later. Okay, and also called Rashis because we see in Shmos Rashis Bikuri Ad Masecha, right? That's uses the word Rashis. Similarly, goes with Truma. Truma is also obviously it's called Truma, Mishmeres Truma, but it's also called Rashis Deganacha, the first of your crop. So far we've got nothing to determine to distinguish between Bikurim and Truma. Ela yiktemu habikurim, but Bikurim must come first. Shehain Bikurim lakol, because they are the first of everything of all the matanos, because their chiyuv falls on them while they're still attached to the ground. Okay, as we discussed that yesterday. It's just logical. Okay. But Utruma Larishon. So how do we know that Truma comes before Maaser Rishon? Okay. Why? Because Truma is called Rashis. That we just saw the pasuk. It's called Rashis, and Maaser doesn't have the word Rashis, so we know that Truma has to come first.
Right.
Okay. Now, how do we know that Maaser Rishon comes before Maaser Sheni? And you might say, well, that's because one's called Rishon and one's called Sheni. And the answer is no, that's not what they're called in the Torah. We call them Maaser Rishon and Maaser Sheni because after the fact, we know that this is the first one and this is the second one, and so we call them that. But how do we know from the Torah that this is the order that they go in? You take Maaser Rishon. Remember, Maaser Rishon goes to the Levi, and Maaser Sheni goes to the owner to eat in Yerushalayim. Why? Sheyesh bo reishis. The reason why we take Maaser Rishon before Maaser Sheni is because Maaser Rishon still has a portion inside it that is going to become Truma, because it's going to have Trumas Maaser that's going to be taken off it. So since it still has within it a portion that's going to be Rashis, that's why we take Maaser Rishon first, and that's why we call it Maaser Rishon. Okay. Ches now goes into what happens if you make a mistake. Hamiskavein lomar truma v'amar maser. So he had in mind what he was going to do, but the wrong words came out. He stumbled in his words, and the wrong thing came out. Maser v'amar truma, ola v'amar shlamim. Similarly, if you're talking about korban, he had intention to declare an animal to be an ola, and he stumbled and said shlamim, or the other way, shlamim v'amar ola. Or he was making a neder. She'eni nichnas lebayis zeh v'amar lazeh. He pointed at the wrong house when he was making the neder. Or she'eni nene lazeh v'amar lazeh. Or he's making a neder of hana from one person and he pointed at the wrong person. Lo amar klum. His words are meaningless. Ad she'iyu piv v'libo shavin. Unless his words are consistent with what he had in mind. So if he said something and said, no, I didn't mean to say that, then that's immediately his words are batal. Okay. Um, this, by the way, is distinct from the argument that we have between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai about a Taos, where, for example, a person said the gold coin that I pull out of my pocket is going to be a nadava, and he sticks his hand in his pocket and he pulls out a silver coin.
Mm.
So base Hillel say it's a taos exactly like this, nothing happened. And Beis Shammai say there's Taos Hekdesh, even though you pulled out the wrong coin, it still goes to Hekdesh. But that's not the same. I don't think that's the same argument as here. Um, I think he had intention, Tachlis, to give money to Hekdesh. I think to what Beis Shammai would say, as
Right.
opposed to here. I don't think. Yeah, I mean, I don't see Beis Shammai coming and arguing the point in this Mishnah about he said Ola, therefore it's an Ola. No, he wanted to make it Shlamim, but
Right.
just the wrong word came out.
The
Okay.
other case was that either coin was going to be hektish anyway, so it was a heck. It was no, okay.
Okay. Although it's questionable about there's the one case in here which is any nene lazeh. Although again, I don't see how it's comparable. So we're going to leave it as this is not what Beis Shammai is going to argue about. Okay, Tess. Hanochri Kusi, the non-Jew and the Kusi, the Samaritan. Now, this is an interesting. Uh, it's a very interesting thing that the Mishnah now compares a non-Jew and a Kusi because throughout the Mishnah, the
Right.
Kusi is considered like a Jew, a suspect Jew, but nonetheless a Jew. So we don't trust them for anything that's in Torah Shebal Peh. And Lifnei Iver Lo Siten Michshol, they take literally, and they don't mind giving you bad advice and getting you to eat treif or whatever. So we don't trust them, but they're nonetheless considered Jews in many respects. Like I mean, in every respect in the Mishnah, it's the Gemara later that removes them completely from Am Yisrael. Um, but that puts some interesting background onto this Mishnah here. Anyway, Truma san Truma. If they took Truma from their own produce, it is valid. It is valid Truma. Okay. Now this is distinct from Mishnah Aleph, where we said that if a non-Jew took Truma, then it's not valid. That's because Mishnah Aleph was talking about a non-Jew being asked by a Jew to take Truma from the Jew's produce. That the non-Jew cannot do. It's a ritual action which is like a non-Jew doing a shchita, cannot be done. Even though if he physically does all the correct actions, a non-Jew just cannot perform a shchita. Also, a non-Jew cannot take truma from a Jew's produce. But if a non-Jew is farming in Eretz Yisrael, and he just likes Jews and he likes doing what the local people do, and he says, "Oh, everyone gives truma. I also want to give truma." Okay, so that's good truma, and that must go to a coin, and the coin doesn't have to take any trumas or masters from it. It's 100% truma. Umasra saying maser, and the same thing goes to maser. If he decides to separate maser rishon, it goes to the Levi. All of their actions on their own produce are effective. The hekdesh, and if they declare something hekdesh, it must go to the temple. And there's no argument about it. Nobody can say, "Oh, well, it's not effective because you're not Jewish." No, these are all valid declarations. Rabbi Yehuda Omer ein lenochri kerem revai. Now the argument here is about the fourth year produce. What is the situation? Does the Kerem Ravai, just to remind you, has got the same din basically as Maaser Sheni. It has to be, the
Mhm.
produce has to be taken to Yerushalayim and eaten in Kedusha, eaten in Tyre in Yerushalayim, or you redeem it and take the money to Yerushalayim, whatever the case. Um, Now the question is that if a non-Jew's produce, I mean, we know that Orla applies. It doesn't matter who it belongs to. Orla is a function of the ground. Now,
Right.
what is the situation with Rivai? Rabbi Yehuda says if it's owned by a non-Jew, then Revai just doesn't take effect. Chachamim אומרים יש לו. Nope, nope. Say Chachamim, it's a function of Eretz Yisrael, and the fact that there's a fourth year in there means that it's got to be taken. It's got to be taken to Yerushalayim. Actually, the Tosefta um, talks about this and says actually the machlokis is only talking about Surya, but in Eretz Yisrael, Rabbi Yehuda agrees that there's Rabai. The argument here is only about Surya. Trumas hanochri medamas v'chayvim alav chomesh. Okay, so now we're returning to the situation of the truma that the non-Jew took. It's not just like play truma that we give it to the Kohen and we just appease him nicely. If this truma fell back into chulin, then it causes meduma mixture.
Right. Right.
Okay, and that's the all the complications of having a mixture of truma and chulin. And if a non-kohen eats it, then he has to restore it plus a chomesh. So we treat this as mea chuz truma, not just like any sort of lesser degree, except for Rabbi Shimon, who says, well, no, we pater from the extra chomesh. Now, from the fact that he says porter, he's only arguing in the second part about the adding the chomesh, but he nonetheless agrees that it creates meduma. Okay, and
Yeah.
that's back to Shvi'is Yud Ches.
You'd, you'd cast. If one repays his debt to the seventh year, he must say to him, I remit it. If he said to him, even so, he may accept it from him, since it is written. And this is the word of the release. Similarly, if a murderer went into exile to a city of refuge and the people of the city wanted to render honor to him, he must say to them, I am a murderer. And if they said, even so, he may accept, since it is written, and this is the word of the slayer. Um, whoever repays the debt in the seventh year, the sages are well pleased with him. Whoever borrows from a prostitute whose son is converted with him need not repay the debt to his sons, but if he repays it, the sages are well pleased with him. All movable property is required by drawing it, and whoever keeps his word, the sages are pleased with him. Hadrullah.
Hajar Allah Masechah Shvi'is. Okay, and
We're
what
going
from the
to
beginning of
Truma. Okay. Olive. Five may not separate truma, and if they separated, their truma is not truma. The deaf mute, the imbecile, the minor, and he who separates from what is not his, from what is not his. If a non-Jew separated from what belongs to a Jew, even with permission, his truma is not truma, which is just
that's
opposite
what we
like
just
what you
learned.
said
That's exactly what
before.
we just learned. Yeah. Okay.
Lion. I am okay. Um, only spun and woven goods come under the prohibition of kalayim, for it is written, "You shall not wear shatnez." That which is shah tava anuz. Rav Shimon ben Elazar says, "Nalav he is estranged. Umlet is estranged his father in heaven." Felted materials are forbidden because they are combed. And edging of wool and linen on linen is forbidden because it interlaces the web. Rabbi Yossi says purple woolen cords are forbidden because one stitches them in order that they may hold until tying them up. And one may not tie a woolen with a flaxen ribbon to gird one's loins, even though there is a strap in the middle. The marks of weavers and the marks of laundrymen are forbidden on account of kalayim. A single stitch is not considered a fastening, and it does not come under the prohibition of kalayim. And if one undoes it on Shabbos, he's exempt. If one brings both ends to the same side, he is fastening and comes under the prohibition of kalayim. And if one undoes on the Sabbath, he's liable. Rabbi Yehuda says only if he makes three, a sack and a basket combined, can constitute kalayim.
Hajar Allah Masechah Kilayim. And
We're
tomorrow,
going on.
Shvi'is.
Shvius. Okay,
Yeah.
wait. Aleph. Okay, let me just put this in there. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Uktzin.
then, okay. Vav. The shell of a slightly roasted egg is a connection until one cuts it, but the shell of an overcooked egg is a connection until he crushes it. The bone that has marrow in it is a connection until one crushes it, and the peel of a pomegranate has one that one separated is a connection until one beats it with a stick. Similarly, the bastings, I guess, the bastings of laundries and a garment that are sewn with kalayim is a connection until he begins to undo it. The green leaves of greens combine, but white leaves do not combine. But Eleazar, the son of Zadik, says the white leaves combine in this case of karabi because they are food, and in the case of lettuce, where they are protective food. Regarding the leaves of onions and the stalks of onions, if they contain sap, they are measured as they are. But if they contain a hollow, one must compress the hollow. Sponge bread is measured as it is. If it contains a hollow, one must compress the hollow. Regarding the meat of a calf that swelled and the meat of an old animal that shrank, they are measured as they are. Regarding a cucumber that one
Yeah.
planted, is that it?
A
Okay,
three.
sorry.
Yeah. Ohalos.
Okay. Zion. Cavity one handbreadth by one handbreadth squared that is one handbreadth high conveys tumor and acts as a barrier against tumor. How so? In the case of a sewer beneath a house that contains a cubic handbreadth and has an outlet of a square handbreadth, if there is tumor inside the sewer, the house remains tahor. If there is tumor in the house, whatever is inside the sewer remains tahor because it is the way of the tumor to exit and not the way to enter. In the case where the sewer contains a cubic handbreadth and the outlet is smaller than a square handbreadth, if there is tumor inside the sewer, the house becomes tameh. If there's tumor in the house, whatever is inside the sewer remains tahor, because it is the way of tumor to exit, but it is not the way of tumor to enter. In the case where the sewer is smaller than a cubic handbreadth and its outlet is smaller than a square handbreadth, if there is tumor inside the sewer, the house becomes tameh. If there is tumor in the house, whatever is inside the sewer becomes tameh. The law is true whether the hole was hollowed out by water, by small animals, or by erosion, and also true if it is formed by a pile of boulders on a stack of beams. Rabbi Yehuda says any roof that is not man-made is not considered an ohel. And, however, he agrees with respect to crags and protecting rock formations that are considered oalim. Um, well, if cabinet is standing in the open air and there's tumor inside it, the utensils inside it remains tahor. If tumor is inside the utensils inside the cabinet remain tahor. Rabbi Yossi says half and half. If the cabinet is standing inside a house and tumor is inside the cabinet and the house becomes tameh, I'm sorry, that's wrong. I didn't say it correctly. If the cabinet is standing inside a house and tumor is inside the cabinet, the house becomes tameh. If tumor is inside the house, whatever is inside the cabinet remains tahor because it is the way of tumor to exit, but is not the way of tumor to enter. In a case where there are utensils between cabinet and either the ground, the wall, or ceiling beams, if there is a space of one handbreadth, they are tameh. If not, they are tahor. And if tumor is there, the house becomes tameh. A drawer of a cabinet contains a cubic handbreadth of empty space and has an opening smaller than a square handbreadth. If there is tumor inside the drawer, the house becomes tameh. And if there is tumor inside the house, whatever is inside the drawer remains tahor, because it is the way of tumor to exit, but not the way to enter. Rabbi Rossi rules the house tahor because one can remove the tumor in halves and burn it in its place.
Right.
And
Adios.
he used to say, a father merits a son with beauty, with physical strength, with material wealth, and with wisdom and Torah, and with years. And he regarded the number of generations that are before him, for that is the time set by him. As it is stated, he proclaimed the generations from the beginning, for although he had stated with regard to redemption from Egypt, and they will serve them, and they will oppress them 400 years, it is also stated, and the fourth generations have returned here. Rabbi Akiva, would also say there are 5 things of 12 duration. I'm sorry, there are 5 things of 12 months duration. The judgment of the generation of the flood was administered over a period of 12 months. The judgment of Job was over 12 months. The judgment of the Egyptian was over 12 months. The judgment of Gog and his nation, Mag in the future will occur over a period in 12 months. And the judgment of evildoers against Hanam and Dor for 12 months, as it is stated, and it will be from a month to its month. When Yochanan ben Nori said the judgment of evildoers take place from Pesach to Shavuos, as it is stated, from a Sabbath to its Sabbath. And if any of the parts of the Vay convey tumah through Ohel were divided and one brought the pieces into a house, Reb Dosa ben Harkinis rules that the person remains tahor and the sages remove, he becomes tameh. If so, how so? If one simultaneously touches 2 half olive-sized pieces of the vela and carries them, or in the case of a corpse, one touches a half-sized piece of and it forms a roof over a half-sized piece, or if he touches a half-sized piece, while another half-sized piece forms a roof over him, or he forms a roof over two half-olive-sized pieces, or he forms a roof over one half-olive-sized piece, while another half-olive-sized piece forms a roof over him. In each of these cases, Reb Dosa ben Yehochanan rules that the person remains tahor, while the common rule that he becomes tameh. But if one touches a half olive-sized piece, of course, while something forms over a roof over him and over another half olive-sized piece, or if one forms a roof over a half solid piece while flowing from something forms a roof over him and another half-sized olive piece, he remains tahor. Reb Meir says, even in this case, Reb Dosa rules that the person remains tahor, and the Kachavim say he was tameh. In every case where a person is subject to tumah from two undersized pieces of corpse, the sages maintain that he can become tameh, except for a combination of touch and carrying or carrying and roof. This is the rule. According to the Chachamim, any two associations from the same category render the person tameh, whereas from two different categories they leave him tahor.
Okay.
Okay, and we have Megillah.
Gila.
Megillah. Okay. They may not sell a synagogue. They may not. This is base. They may not sell a synagogue except under the condition that if they wish, they may repurchase it. This is the opinion of Reb Meir. The comments, however, that they may sell it permanently and for any purpose except for the following: for uses as a bathhouse, tannery, mikvah, or water closet. Reb Yehuda says they may sell it as a courtyard, and the purchaser may do as he pleases. But Yehuda says further, in a synagogue that has been destroyed, one may not offer eulogies therein, twist ropes therein, spread nets therein, spread produce on its roof, nor use it as a shortcut, for the Torah states, and I shall make desolate your sanctuaries. This implies that they are holy even when they're desolate. If grass grew in the ruins, one may not detach it because of grief. On the first day of Adar, which falls on Shabbos, we read the portion of Skolem. If it falls on a weekday, we advance the reading of Skolem to take the Sabbath before and interrupt the reading of the four portions on the next Sabbath. On the second Sabbath, we read the portion of Zachar. Remember what Amalek did. On the third, we read the portion of Par Aduma and the red cow. On the fourth Sabbath, we read the portion of HaKodesh Hazeh Lechem. This month shall be to you. And on the fifth Sabbath, we resume reading the regular order. For all of the following occasions, we interrupt the regular order on Rosh Chodesh, on Hanukkah, on Purim, and on Purim public fast, on Mismados, and on Yom Kippur.
It's great that we
Okay.
get this Mishnah today because we're going to have Shabbos Mevarachim tomorrow,
Right.
and
You saw
it's gonna be Rosh Chodesh on Shabbos, on Friday and Shabbos. So,
Friday night Shabbos and Sunday too, I think. Yes.
well, you kind of Rosh Chodesh 3 days.
No, well, today's not Rosh Chodesh.